What's shaking, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Smashing Pumpkins, and we're returning to the 1991 album Gish. I did want to mention, though, I'm aware the Smashing Pumpkins, and I think maybe also Billy by himself, are playing shows in the coming months through the remainder of the year that are in celebration of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. And one of the shows near the end of the year is going to be in Inglewood, California, which is like a outlying part of greater Los Angeles. And I've seen shows in Inglewood before. I saw Depeche Mode there a few years ago, meaning it's not terribly far away from where I live. It's not like right next to where I live, but it's within an hour and a half or so of a drive, which means it's entirely feasible for me to go to that show, and I would very much like to do that. Now, it'll depend on a number of factors: the price of tickets, the day of the week, and ultimately what might work in terms of my work schedule and so on. But the point is, I would love to see the Pumpkins live, and in particular, seeing them play songs from the forever masterful double album Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness would just be brilliant. So if I can go, I am going to very much do that, and if that happens, I would certainly be interested in taking a vlog, which is to say, when I've gone to see Duran Duran a couple times recently, when I saw Depeche Mode, I will take little clips of songs. I'm still like watching the show, but I'll just take little bits of songs, and maybe in some songs, most or all of the song, and then I string those together. And what I've done is, I've done a decompression where I shoot a final video when I get home, and I talk about my experience at the show, and the way different songs hit and what was happening in the crowd. So if I'm able to go to that show, I will absolutely do a vlog. Nevertheless, one of the parts of the tour, or maybe tours plural, is in Europe, and there are a number of dates, and it looks like for that part of the concert series, it's going to be Billy with a full like orchestra. So they're going to do these orchestrated symphonic versions of songs from Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, and that sounds fantastic. So either way, it's an exciting time for those who follow Smashing Pumpkins. I only found out about this a few days ago, and I am, as I said, very keen to see if I can make that Inglewood show work. In any case, back to Gish. The next track in the playlist is Rhinoceros, or Rhinoceros, as a friend of mine used to say. But yes, obviously it's a specific animal reference. If it's a metaphor, if it's a visual reference but expressed thematically in relation to people, maybe the narrator himself, I don't quite know what to think of it. Of course, they are large and powerful animals, dangerous animals, but they're also endangered, so I feel like the danger could be in different directions. Nevertheless, I will try to follow what I can. Let's give it a listen. This is Smashing Pumpkins. The song is Rhinoceros, and it's from the 1991 album Gish.
She knows, and she knows, she knows, she knows, and she knows, she knows, she knows, house, and she knows, she knows, she knows, and she knows, she knows. Come and shout after I should go see you and you. Yahweh, she knows, and she knows, she knows, she knows, and she knows, she knows, she knows, house, and she knows, she knows, she knows, and she knows, she knows.
felt like I was time traveling with that last part right there. That's awesome. I love the way it builds. It starts as one of their more dreamy, a bit psychedelic tunes. Even the guitar had a bit of a psychedelic effect to it. and then it got a bit bigger, and those kind of, you know, electric, gritty guitar chords came in, and then it really kicked up to like a third level, and then it just was, you know, brilliant. It was absolutely awesome the way it exploded like that. Lyrically, I'm struggling to follow along here. I didn't catch everything. Obviously, the She Knows repetition and what's the right word? Oh, there's a word that I'm looking for, because I don't think it was like the chorus. It was like a refrain essentially, but it was repeated and repeated. It actually got to the point, you know, when you say a word enough times that like it starts to sound weird because you're just repeating it, and it's almost like the syllables don't seem like a word anymore. It's just like a sequence of sounds. It actually got to that point, and I kept waiting for like She Knows to be rhymed with Rhinoceros or something like that. It didn't quite happen that way. But either way, like, I'm not sure what's happening lyrically and thematically, but I definitely enjoy the repetition of that phrase, in the sense that it's like we're in his head and he's just repeating that piece of information, which presumably bears some significance, and you know, it's about knowledge, and thus whoever she is knowing that piece of information having consequences or ramifications. So the fact that he kept going back to it and back to it and back to it, you know, it gave me a sense of intensity about that piece of information. I just don't know what to make of it because I didn't catch enough of the lyrics apart from that. Nevertheless, as I said, I love the sonics, and it's kind of like both sides of the spectrum of their song stylings, meaning they do have more floaty and dreamy and almost, you know, hypnotizing type of tunes, and then they have rocking tunes with, you know, crazy guitars and guitar distortion and Billy singing more intensely. Now, you know, he's not like scream singing like we've heard him do on tracks that are coming down the road, but generally speaking, I think this is nice in that we get a bit of both sides of their sonic palette in the same song, and in fact, like progressing from one end of that to the other. And then, as I said, that crazy section at the end where I almost wondered, like, wait, is it going to come back to like the proper song after going on this, you know, distorted, extended, mechanical type of interlude? But no, it was like the end, and it was like we were listening to some electrical signal that, you know, has been fragmented and you can't quite make out what it's supposed to be, but then it just, you know, it really expanded, boom, and then it was over. So yeah, I really enjoyed that ending, and it was unpredictable. I had no idea what was going to happen, and as I said, as I was listening, I felt like, number one, it was an electrical signal, but number two, I was being like pulled through the circuits of time or something. It was crazy. So yeah, another really top tune from an album I'm already enjoying, and it feels like they hit the ground running. Like, you know, we're not even to Siamese Dream yet. We're not to the, you know, maybe magnus opus that is the Melancholy and the Infant Sadness album, but ultimately I'm enjoying the way in which this album feels like they knew what they were doing. They knew they had this unique sound right from the start, as opposed to like trying to find the sound, where, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I know groups that like the first couple albums, they're interesting, they're cool, but it's not till you get to like album 3 or 4 that's like, oh, like this is the classic sound. It feels like the classic sound was there from the beginning. So in any case, let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.